Wife to husband. My marriage was delayed because of studies. Why was your marriage delayed? Husband. I used to give charity a lot. Wife. What is the relationship between charity and marriage? Husband. Charity postpones many calls. But this year, due to busyness, charity was not given, so my marriage took place. Girl. You can bring the moon for me. The boy put the glass in front of him. Girl. Oh, you think I am the moon? Boy. No, look at the shape and look at the request. An 85-year-old man was requested by his doctor for a count as part of his physical exam. The doctor gave the man a jar and said, "Take this jar home and bring back a semen sample tomorrow." The next day, the 85-year-old man reappeared at the doctor's office and gave him the jar, which was as clean and empty as on the previous day. The doctor asked what happened, and the man explained. Well, Doc, it's like this. First I tried with my right hand, but nothing. Then I tried with my left hand, but still nothing. Then I asked my wife for help. She tried with her right hand, then with her left, still nothing. She tried with her mouth, first with the teeth in, then with her teeth out, still nothing. We even called up Arlene, the lady next door, and she tried too. First with both hands, then an armpit, and she even tried squeezing it between her knees, but still nothing. The doctor was shocked. You asked your neighbor? The old man replied, Yep, none of us could get the jar open. Mitzi and Milda were talking about their grandchildren after the holidays. Mitzi said, My daughter-in-law stopped making my grandchildren send their thank you notes. Each year I sent the grandchildren a card with a generous check inside. I always received a lovely thank you note. However, since my daughter-in-law stopped making the grandkids send thank you notes, I never hear from them. Milda said, My daughter-in-law never made the grandchildren send thank you notes. I too send them a very generous check. However, for the past several years, I hear from them within a week after they receive it. In fact, they each pay me a personal visit. Wow, remarked Mitzi. I wish mine would do that. You can, Mitzi, you can. How? Mitzi asked. Simple, Milda replied. Do what I do. Don't sign the check. One day, Bill and Tom went to a restaurant for dinner. As soon as the waiter took out 2 steaks, Bill quickly picked out the bigger steak for himself. Tom wasn't happy about that. When are you going to learn to be polite? Bill. If you had the chance to pick first, which one would you pick? Tom. The smaller piece, of course. Bill. What are you whining about then? The smaller piece is what you want, right? When Pat and Mike met each other on the street one day, Pat noticed that Mike had a terrible cold. Have you seen a doctor about that cold? He asked. No, said Mike, but I probably should. Do you know a good doctor? Pat gave him the name of his own doctor and assured him that he'd be in good hands. About a week later, they met again, and Pat wasn't sure if the cold was really better. Did you see my doctor? Pat inquired. Oh, yeah, Mike replied. He was a really nice guy. Well, did he give you something to help your cold? Sure did, Mike answered somewhat enthusiastically. He told me to drink a big glass of fresh orange juice after a hot bath. Well, did it help? Pat asked hesitantly. How do I know? Mike retorted. I haven't even finished drinking the bath yet. A customer was bothering the waiter in a restaurant. First, he asked that the air conditioning be turned up because he was too hot. Then he asked it be turned down because he was too cold, and so on for about half an hour. Surprisingly, the waiter was very patient. He walked back and forth and never once got angry. So finally, a second customer asked him why he didn't throw out the pest. "Oh, I really don't care or mind," said the waiter with a smile. "We don't even have an air conditioner." 3 girls go into the doctor's office. The first takes off her shirt, and the doctor notices that she has a blue Y on her chest. He asks, "How did you get that?" She answers, "Well, my boyfriend goes to Yale, and he leaves his Yale sweatshirt on, even when we make love." The next girl comes in and has a red H on her chest. She explains, "Well, my boyfriend goes to Harvard, and he leaves his sweatshirt on even when we make love." The final girl comes in and has a W on her chest. The doctor asks, "Let me guess, you have a boyfriend that goes to Wisconsin?" She answers, "No, a girlfriend at Michigan. Why?" An elder couple were sitting in their broken-down car on the side of the road waiting for a tow truck. The tow truck arrives, and the driver walks up to the car as the old man who was driving rolls down his window. Driver: "Hello, folks. What seems to be the problem?" Elder lady: "What?" Elder man: "Sorry, my wife is hard of hearing." Then he looks at his wife and yells out, "He asked what the problem was." Elder lady: "I think we ran out of gas." Driver: "No problem. I can tow you to the nearest gas station. It's only about 5 miles away." Elder lady: "What?" Elder man: "He said he will tow us to the nearest gas station." Elder lady: "Okay, thank you." As the driver was hooking up the car to the tow truck, he decided to make conversation. Driver: "So, where are you folks from?" Elder lady: "What?" Elder man: "He asked where we're from." Elder lady: "Birmingham, Alabama." Driver: "Birmingham. I lived there many, many years ago. Met a woman who was probably the worst of my life." Elder lady: "What?" Elder man: "He said he thinks he knows you." As her husband stepped out of the front door, the wife called after him, "I bet you don't know what day this is." He paused, momentarily perplexed, but quickly plastered on a confident smile. "Of course I do, my dear. How could I forget?" he replied smoothly, before hurrying off to catch his bus to work. At 10 a.m., the doorbell rang. When the wife answered, she was greeted by a delivery man holding a box of a dozen long-stemmed red roses. By 1 p.m., another delivery arrived, a foil-wrapped 2-pound box of her favorite chocolates. Later that afternoon, a boutique courier delivered a stunning designer dress. The wife, delighted and surprised by the thoughtful gifts, could hardly wait for her husband to come home. When he finally stepped through the door, he was wearing a smug grin, proud of his quick thinking and relieved to have averted what could have been a disaster. His wife greeted him with excitement. "First the flowers, then the chocolates, and then the dress," she exclaimed. "I've never had a more wonderful Groundhog Day in my life." An elderly couple was settling into bed when the husband suddenly let out a loud fart and proudly declared, 7 points! His wife, confused, turned to him and asked, "What on earth are you talking about?" With a mischievous grin, he replied, "It's fart football." Not one to back down from a challenge, the wife waited a moment before letting one rip. Smiling triumphantly, she declared, "Touchdown! Tie game!" A few minutes later, the husband responded with another loud one. "Aha! 14-7, I'm back in the lead!" Determined to keep pace, the wife let loose another big one and exclaimed, "Touchdown! Tie game again!" Then, with a sly smile, she followed it up with a small squeaker and added, "Field goal! I'm leading, 17-14. Feeling the heat, the husband pushed hard to reclaim his lead, but in his eagerness, disaster struck. He accidentally pooped in the bed. His wife, horrified, shouted, "What did you just do?" Sighing in defeat, the husband muttered, "Half-time, time to switch sides." An overweight man spends his evenings watching TV when one night, a commercial catches his attention. A program guaranteeing a 10-pound weight loss in just 1 week. Intrigued, he decides to give it a shot. The next morning, he opens his door to find an incredibly beautiful woman wearing nothing but running shoes and a sign around her neck that reads, "If you can catch me, you can have me." Before he can process what's happening, she bolts. Motivated, the man chases her but fails to catch up. This continues every day for a week. By the end of it, he steps on the scale to find he's lost 10 pounds. Pleased with the results, he signs up for the next program, which promises 15-pound weight loss in a week. The following morning, an even more stunning woman greets him under the same conditions. She takes off running, and he chases her with renewed determination. While he gets closer to catching her, she still eludes him. After another week of relentless pursuit, he's thrilled to see the scale reflecting a 15-pound drop. Encouraged by his success, he decides to try the ultimate program, which guarantees a 25-pound weight loss. However, before enrolling, he's required to sign a waiver and is warned about the extreme nature of the plan. He dismisses the caution and signs up anyway. The next morning, he opens his door to a startling sight. A towering 300-pound bodybuilder wearing nothing but running shoes, sporting a fierce expression and a sign around his neck that reads, "If I catch you, you're mine." Terrified, the man sprints like never before. For the entire week, he runs with every ounce of energy he has. By the end of the program, he doesn't just lose the promised 25 pounds, he sheds 34. Two nuns, who were in Africa to spread the gospel, ran out of gas with their jeep just outside a remote village they had visited. One of the nuns remembered they had a small gas station of sorts in the village, so they decided to walk back and get some gas for their jeep. They couldn't find any can in the car, but one of them grabbed a potty from their sanitary equipment and said it would suffice, and off they went. As they returned and started pouring gasoline from the potty into the car, a villager came passing by. As he saw them and what they were doing, he exclaimed, "Sisters, I do not share your beliefs, but I do admire your faith." Judy and Ted got married and had 13 children. Then Ted died of heart disease. Judy married again, and she and Bob had 7 more children. Bob was killed in a car accident 12 years later. Again, Judy remarried, and this time she and John had 5 more children. Judy finally died after having 25 children. Standing before her coffin, the preacher prayed for her. He thanked the Lord for this very loving woman and said, "Lord, they are finally together." Ethel leaned over and quietly asked her best friend, Margaret, "Margaret, do you think he means her first, second, or third husband?" Margaret replied, "I think he means her legs, Ethel." There's a woman sitting in the vet's with her small dog. A young girl with a Great Dane comes in and sits beside her. As they are waiting, they strike up a conversation. The young girl says, "What's he in for?" pointing to the dog. The older woman looks around and makes sure no one else can hear. She says, "Well, actually, it's a bit embarrassing. You see, every time I bend down, he tries to mount me, so we're here to have him neutered." She then turns to the young girl and said, "So what's he in for?" pointing to her dog. The young girl says, "Actually, he's got the same problem as yours." The older women say, "So have you brought him in to be neutered too?" "Good God, no," says the young girl. "I just want his toenails clipped." A few minutes before the service began, the congregation was chatting in their pews. Suddenly, Satan appeared at the front of the church. Chaos erupted as everyone screamed and scrambled toward the doors, trampling one another in a desperate attempt to flee from evil incarnate. In moments, the church was empty, except for one elderly man who sat calmly in his pew, completely unfazed by the commotion or Satan's presence. Intrigued, Satan strutted over to him and growled, "Do you know who I am?" The old man nodded. "Sure do." Satan sneered, "Aren't you afraid of me?" "Nope, not a bit," the man said, as cool as could be. Satan's eyes narrowed. "Don't you realize I could kill you with a single word?" "Don't doubt it for a second," the man replied evenly. Satan leaned in closer. "And did you know I could inflict endless, agonizing pain on you for all eternity?" "Yep," the old man replied, unflinching. Frustrated, Satan shouted, "Then why aren't you afraid of me?" The man shrugged and said calmly, "Been married to your sister for 51 years. A doctor comes up with a crazy idea to make more money. He puts a sign outside his clinic that reads, "If I can cure you, you pay me 20. If I can't, I'll pay you 100. A lawyer sees the sign and decides it's his time to shine. He goes to the doctor and says, "Doctor, I've lost my sense of taste. Please cure me." The doctor tells his nurse, "Bring me some medicine from drawer 30. The lawyer takes a swig, immediately spits it out, and exclaims, "This is gasoline." The doctor smiles and says, "There you go, taste restored. That'll be 20 dollars, please." Frustrated, the lawyer pays and leaves, but he's determined to outsmart the doctor. The next day, he returns and says, "Doctor, I've lost my memory. Please cure me." The doctor nods and says to his nurse, "Bring me some medicine from drawer 30. The lawyer shouts, "Wait! That's the same stuff you gave me last time." The doctor grins. "Memory restored. That'll be 20, please." Now furious, the lawyer comes back the next day with a foolproof plan and says, "Doctor, I've gone blind. Cure me if you can." The doctor sighs and says, "Sorry, I can't cure blindness. Here's your $100. He hands the lawyer a $5 bill. The lawyer says, "Hey, this is only for not $100. The doctor smiles and says, "Blindness cured. That'll be $20, please." A young guy moved to California and went to a big box store looking for a job. The manager of the store asked him, "Do you have any sales experience?" The guy replied, "Yeah, I was a salesman back home." The manager liked him and gave him the job. "You can start tomorrow. I'll come down after we close and see how you did." His first day on the job was rough, but he got through it. After the store was locked up, the manager came down and asked, "How many customers bought something from you today?" The guy replies, "Just one." The boss asks, "Just one? Our salespeople average 20 to 30 customers a day." The boss continued, "How much was the sale for?" The guy replied, "Over 125,000. The boss was shocked. "Over 125,000? What the heck did you sell?" The guy answered, "First, I sold him a fish hook, then I sold him a new fishing rod. Then I asked him where he was going fishing, and he said down the coast, so I told him he was going to need a boat. So we went down to the boat department, and I sold him a twin-engine Boston Whaler. Then he said he didn't think his Honda Civic would pull it, so I took him down to the automotive department and sold him that expedition." The boss was amazed. "A guy came in here to buy a fish hook, and you sold him a boat and a truck?" The guy said, "No, the guy came in here to buy tampons for his wife, and I said, 'Dude, your weekend's shot. You should go fishing.'" Two elderly Irish drinking buddies are sitting at the pub pondering on the future. One says to the other, "You know, Mr. O'Shea, we've had great sport together for many years. It just came to mind that should it be I who should happen to go first, it would mean a great deal to me if you would say a few kind words at me grave." The other friend responds, "That I'll do, Mr. O'Donnell, that I'll do. But should it be I who should happen to go first? For old time's sake, I'd be forever grateful if you would pour a bottle of fine Irish whiskey over me grave." The friend responds, "That I'll do, that I'll do. But would you mind it so much if it should happen to pass through me kidneys first?" Did you hear about the Texas teacher who was helping one of her kindergarten students put on his cowboy boots? He asked for help, and she could see why. Even with her pulling and him pushing, the little boots still didn't want to go on. By the time they got the second boot on, she had worked up a sweat. She almost cried when the little boy said, "Teacher, they're on the wrong feet." She looked, and sure enough, they were. It wasn't any easier pulling the boots off than it was putting them on. She managed to keep her cool as together they worked to get the boots back on, this time on the right feet. He then announced, "These aren't my boots." She bit her tongue rather than get right in his face and scream, "Why didn't you say so?" like she wanted to. Once again, she struggled to help him pull the ill-fitting boots off his little feet. No sooner had they gotten the boots off when he said, "They're my brother's boots. My mom made me wear 'em." Now she didn't know if she should laugh or cry. But she mustered up what grace and courage she had left to wrestle the boots on his feet again. Helping him into his coat, she asked, "Now, where are your mittens?" He said, "I stuffed them in the toes of my boots." She will be eligible for parole in 3 years. Two cowboys came upon an Indian lying on his stomach with his ear to the ground. One of the cowboys stops and says to the other, "You see that Indian?" "Yeah," says the other cowboy. "Look," says the first one, "he's listening to the ground. He can hear things for miles in any direction." Just then the Indian looks up. "Covered wagon," he says. "About 2 miles away. Have 2 horses, 1 brown, 1 white. Man, woman, to child, furniture in wagon." "Incredible," says the cowboy to his friend. "This Indian knows how far away they are, how many horses, what color, what's in the wagon. Just amazing." The Indian looks up and says, "Ugh, not amazing. Wagon ran over me 30 minutes ago." A woman takes her 16-year-old daughter to the doctor. The doctor says, "Okay, Mrs. Jones, what's the problem?" The mother says, "It's my daughter, Debbie. She keeps getting these cravings. She's putting on weight and is sick most mornings." The doctor gives Debbie a good examination, then turns to the mother and says, "Well, I don't know how to tell you this, but your daughter is pregnant. About 4 months would be my guess." The mother says, "Pregnant? She can't be. She has never ever been with a man. Have you, Debbie?" Debbie says, "No, mother. I've never even kissed a man. I'm still a virgin." The doctor walked over to the window and just stood there staring out of it. About 5 minutes pass, and finally the mother says, "Is there something wrong out there, doctor?" The doctor replies, "No, not really. It's just that the last time anything like this happened, a star appeared in the east and 3 wise men came over the hill. And there's no way I'm going to miss it this time." After 37 years of marriage, Jake left his wife Edith for his young secretary Yuri. His new girlfriend insisted they live in Jake and Edith's luxurious, multi-million-dollar home. With better lawyers on his side, Jake prevailed in court and gave Edith just 3 days to move out. On the first day, Edith packed her belongings into boxes, crates, and suitcases. On the second day, movers came to take her things. On the third day, she sat down for a final meal at their elegant dining table. By candlelight, with soft music in the background, she enjoyed a feast of shrimp, caviar, and Chardonnay. When she finished, Edith walked into every room of the house and stuffed half-eaten shrimp shells dipped in caviar into the hollow spaces of the curtain rods. She cleaned up the kitchen and left the house for good. When Jake and his new girlfriend moved in, everything seemed perfect for a few days. Then, an unrelenting stench began to fill the house. They tried everything: deep cleaning, airing out the rooms, checking vents for dead animals, and even replacing the carpets. Exterminators were called in, and air fresheners were placed everywhere. Nothing worked. The smell became so unbearable that friends stopped visiting, repair workers refused to enter, and even the housemaid quit. Desperate, they decided to sell the house. Despite cutting the price in half, no buyers showed interest. The foul odor had earned the house a notorious reputation, and even local realtors stopped taking their calls. Eventually, Jake and his girlfriend had to borrow a large sum of money to buy a new home. One day, Edith called Jake to ask how he was doing. He vented about the house's unbearable smell and their struggles to sell it. Edith listened sympathetically and mentioned how much she missed her old home. She offered to take the house back in exchange for a significant reduction in her divorce settlement. Desperate to be rid of the house, Jake agreed. He quickly sold it to her at a fraction of its original value, provided she signed the papers that same day. Edith agreed and finalized the deal within hours. A week later, Jake and his girlfriend stood watching movers pack their belongings to transfer to their new home. As they smiled, satisfied to leave the nightmare behind, the movers loaded up everything, including the curtain rods.